तव कथामृतम् तप्तजीवनम् कविभिरीडितम् कल्मषापहम् श्रवणमङ्गलम् श्रीमदाततम् भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जनाः भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जनाः।
ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जना. We are studying the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and we are in the conversations of October 22, 1885. We have read up to some arrived page 857 English. Bengali 926 bottom. Context is that Sri Ramakrishna is in Shampukur. Because of his cancer, the Calcutta devotees will find him easy to serve him there. Doctors will find him easy to visit him daily. So he has been shifted to Shampukur. And Ishan has come to visit him. Ishan is a householder. So Thakur is encouraging him by telling him that householders are great because of so much weight being on them, and yet they remember God. And then shifts to comparison between householders who are fully realized people and sannyasis who are fully realized people. A comparison Thakur is telling for our clearer understanding. So, now we continue. Thakur is telling that householders may be Brahmajanis, but some difference is there in the expression, manifestation. And so, we read here, once a Bhairavi came to King Janaka's court. At the sight of the woman, the king bent his head and cast his eyes to the ground. You understand this point? Three types of reactions are possible. If a man sees a woman, he may be tempted to look at her. If a woman meets a man, and is a man of knowledge, but he has some sanskaras of being careful about looking at women, so he bends his eyes down. That is what Janaka has done. There may be a third type of response, that woman visits a man continues to look at her, because in him the difference between woman and man has vanished. Now, out of this, Janaka is not tempted to look at her and enjoy her beauty, but because of the old sanskaras, when he was careful about not looking at women, his eyes go down. So that much difference is being pointed out between a householder man of realization and a sannyasi man of realization. But he will tell later on, here itself, that it does not affect his Brahmajnan. But in the expression, we do find this difference. Once a Bhairavi came to King Janaka's court at the sight of the woman, Bhairavi, sannyasini, but woman. At the sight of woman, the king bent his head and cast his eyes to the ground. At this the Bhairavi said, O Janaka, even now you are afraid of woman. Even now. Through perfect knowledge, a man becomes like a child 5 years old. He does not know the distinction between a man and a woman. See, the wheel turns completely. A child of 5 does not know the difference. Then in youth age, he has seen the difference. But becoming a Brahmajna, he has lost the difference. That is the difference. He is not a child. But similarity with child is that child does not know the difference. A Brahmajna has lost the difference. So he does not know the difference. So she points out like a flaw in Janaka's jnana. But actually it is not a flaw, only a difference in manifestation. Although a jnani living in the world may have a little blemish, Thakur immediately corrects it. Although a jnani living in the world may have a little blemish, yet this does not injure him. The moon, example for everything. The moon undoubtedly has dark spots, but that does not obstruct its light. So, like a dark spot, negligible, no, meaningless, unaffecting. After realizing God, some souls perform work in order to teach men. So, Janaka is being put in that category. To teach men how to do work, they work after Brahmajnan. We may quote a similar example. Holy Mother's house in Jairambati, there were to be, her brothers were to be given something. So Sardananji had gone there. Mother had called him. And Sardanji was one moment agreeing with this mama, another moment with that mama. Mother is telling the young sannyasis, see, Thakur's disciple can spend their whole life looking at the tip of their nose in Himalayan caves. But they are working only to show you people how to work without attachment. So you understand? Janaka, Narada, and others like them belong to this group. So here householder and non-householders are equated. But one must possess power in order to be able to teach others. Power to teach others is different than only your own knowledge. The sages of old were busy attaining knowledge for themselves. Old sages, the Vedic seers, they somehow were busy, not only Vedic seers, but there is a story about Ramchandra that so many sages were there meditating. So they were busy looking after their own Brahmajnana. But teachers like Narada went about doing good to others. They were real heroes. No example for everything. A worthless stick floating on the water sinks under the weight of a bird, but a heavy and substantial log floating on the water can support a cow, a man, or even an elephant. A steamboat not only crosses the water itself, but carries many human beings with it. Teachers like Narada may be compared to the heavy log of wood or the steamboat. One man, after eating a tasty morsel, removes every another funny example. One man, after eating a tasty morsel, removes every trace of it by wiping his face carefully with a towel, lest anyone should know or laugh. Another again, having got a mango, not only enjoys it himself, but shares it with others. How the difference? This is called constitutional difference. Variety in human beings, even after the realization of Advaita. Even after having attained perfect knowledge, teachers like Narada retained love of God in their minds for the welfare of others. So, some sort of apparent difference so that they will be communicating with people and showing them the model of life. Doctor. Jnana makes a so Dr. Sarkar is there in his presence, the talks are going on. Doctor. Jnana makes a man speechless. He closes his eyes and sheds tears. Then he needs bhakti. So doctor has understood something that after jnana, he becomes speechless, closes his eyes, and tears in his eyes. He requires bhakti there. Master, bhakti may be likened to a woman who has access to the inner court of a house. You know, in the olden days, there was inner and outer apartments. Ladies were in the inner apartment, so men were not allowed to go there. Some women would surely go there. So that it takes as comparison. Some people have taken an exemption to this example because Thakur is talking about jnana in the masculine gender. And they said jnanam is a neutral gender. Maybe in Sanskrit, Thakur is talking in Bengali, and there is no harm in that. So, Master, bhakti may be likened to a woman who has access to the inner court of a house. Jnana can go only as far as the outer room. So, meaning here is that important statement. Jnana, after jnana, what? Moksha. By bhakti, moksha. This difference you will find everywhere in Vedanta. Panchami and Tritiya both are used to show cause and effect. But Panchami is from here, there. Tritiya is cause by this here. So, Jnanat Mukti, Bhaktya Mukti. That is how it is mentioned. So, Thakur is telling that Jnana can go up to the outer court and then Mukti will follow. By Bhakti. By Bhakti, not by Jnana. Now, doctor will find in every example some point for his own side. Doctor, all women are not allowed to enter the inner court. For instance, prostitutes. Hence the need of jnana. So jnana has to come up to that point. Though further may go by bhakti, but only bhakti cannot go. That is what doctor means. That character is necessary, perfection by jnana is necessary, then bhakti can proceed. So in Thakur's example, he finds his own point and said prostitute also is a woman, but she is not allowed to go to the inner court. Master, Now, they will go on arguing, and everywhere Thakur will show the right path. Discrimination, analysis, but within that he will show the right angle. Now, this question has come that without knowledge you cannot proceed, only by bhakti. That is what Doctor has shown. This is not correct. Thakur will show bhakti will take you there by itself. Master, a man may not know the right path because jnana is not there. But if he has bhakti and the desire to know God, then he attains him through the force of sheer bhakti. Once a sincere devotee set out on a pilgrimage to the temple of Jagannath in Puri. He did not know the way. He went west instead of east. He no doubt strayed from the right path. But he always eagerly asked people the way, and they gave him the right direction, saying, "This is not the path, follow that one." At last, the devotee was able to get to Puri and worship the deity. So you see, even if you are ignorant, someone will tell you the way if you are earnest. Doctor. But the devotee in his ignorance did lose his way. Master, yes, such a thing happens, no doubt. But a man reaches the goal in the end. So he has accepted every point of doctor, but shows the way. Yes, if you do not have knowledge, you may spend more time, you may spend more labor. But remember, ultimately you are reaching because of bhakti. A devotee. Now, different question, devotee. Has God a form or is he formless? Patent question. Master, God has form and again he is formless. Once upon a time, a sannyasi entered the temple of Jagannath. As he looked at the holy image, he debated within himself whether God has a form or was formless. He passed his staff from left to right to feel whether it touched the image. The staff touched nothing. Image is there, but staff touched nothing. He understood that there was no image before him. He concluded that God was formless. Some beautiful examples he creates. Next, he passed the staff from right to left. He touched the image. The sannyasi understood that God had form. Thus, he realized that God has form and again is formless. So, through some examples, Thakur is telling both. But it is extremely difficult to understand this. Naturally, the doubt arises in the mind. If God is formless, how then can he have forms? Further, if he has a form, why does he have so many forms? Has he a fixed form? Then why so many forms? I'll tell you an incident. In Haryana Raj Bhavan in Chandigarh, they had called a meeting of protagonists of different religions to find out how each religion contributes toward the harmony. Now, there was one professor of history, a Sikh professor of history, and he said, in Hindus, there are so many forms, and they quarrel over their forms. That is why the Sikh gurus prescribe formless God. Then my turn came. I said, Professor so and so is a professor of history, but he has forgotten history. The murders, the attacks have been done by people professing formless God. We do not see this among people with God with forms. They may have difference, They may quarrel like my God is superior than your God. But they will say my God is the only God. None of the people with forms have quarreled like that as the formless people have quarreled. But the problem does exist. And Sri Krishna has solved the problem by telling that all forms are equal and without form also is there. That is the right attitude. But it is extremely difficult to understand this. Naturally, the doubt arises in the mind of God is formless. How then he can have form? Further, if he has a form, why does he have so many forms? Doctor, God has created all these forms in the world, all the forms in the world. Therefore, he himself has a form. God is in all the forms. Again, he has created the mind. Therefore, he is formless. It is possible for God to be everything. So he has his own way of thinking, in the science way of thinking. So mind is formless for him. Master, these things do not become clear until one has realized God. So your examples are gross examples. They do not give the exact difference. Only when you realize, then only you will clearly understand. These things do not become clear until one has realized God. He assumes different forms and reveals himself to do in different ways for the sake of his devotee. According to his constitution, he appears. Not that because he has created this and he has created this. A man kept a solution of dye in a tub. Many people came to him to have their clothes dyed. He would ask a customer, what color should you like to have your clothes dyed? If the customer wanted a red, then the man would dip the cloth in the tub and say, here is your red cloth dyed red. If another customer wanted his cloth dyed yellow, the man would dip his cloth in the same tub and say, here is your cloth dyed yellow. If a customer wanted his cloth dyed blue, the man would dip it in the same tub and say, here is your cloth dyed blue. Thus he would dye the clothes of his customers different colors, dipping them all in the same solution. So Thakur's explanation of different forms is this. One of the customers watched all this with amazement. The man asked him, well, what color do you want for your cloth? The customer said, brother, dye my cloth the color of the dye in your tub. Laughter. Now, you understand this analogy? That person is Swami Vivekananda, who wants the nature of God as he is, not his choice. I want blue, I want red. I want as God actually is. And we appreciate that. But think of the man who is coloring. He is Sri Ramakrishna. He can give man the Sarup of God. He can give God in as many ways he can be experienced. That is the incarnation. That is Thakur. Once a man went into a wood and saw a beautiful creature on a tree. Later he told a friend about it and said, brother, on a certain tree in the wood, I saw a red-colored creature. The friend answered, I have seen it too. Why do you call it red? It is green. A third man said, oh, no, no. Why do you call it green? It is yellow. Then other persons began to describe the animal variously as violet, blue, or black. Soon they were quarreling about the color. At last they went to the tree and found a man sitting under it. In answer to their question, he said, I live under this tree and know the creature very well. What each of you has said about it is true. Sometimes it is red, sometimes green, sometimes yellow, sometimes blue, and so forth, and so on. Again, sometimes I see that it has no color whatsoever. Chameleon. Only he who constantly thinks of God can know his real nature. The man sitting under the tree. He alone knows that God reveals himself in different forms and different ways, that he has attributes and again has none. Saguna and Nirguna. Only the man who lives under the tree knows that the chameleon can assume various colors and that sometimes it remains colorless. Others, not knowing the whole truth, quarrel among themselves and suffer. So one has to know God fully. Yes, God has form. And again, he has none. Do you know how it is? Brahman, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, is like a shoreless ocean. In the ocean, visible blocks of ice are formed here and there by intense cold. Similarly, under the cooling influence, so to speak, of the bhakti of the worshippers, the infinite transforms itself into finite and appears before the worshipper as God with form. Finite in appearance. That is to say, God reveals himself as his bhaktas. God reveals himself to his bhaktas as an embodied person. Again, as on the rising of the sun, the ice in the ocean melts away, so on the awakening of Jnana, the embodied God melts back into the infinite and formless Brahman. So for Jnani, it is Nirakar, Nirgun. Doctor, yes, when the sun is up, the ice melts. And what is more, the heat of the sun turns the water into invisible vapor. Water also has form, na? But it can become vapor also, which has absolutely no form. So this time he has pushed the example one step forward. Master, that is, yes, that is true. As a result of the discrimination that Brahman alone is real and the world is illusory, this is necessary for jnana. The aspirant goes into samadhi. As a result of discrimination, the aspirant goes into samadhi. Then for him, the forms or attributes of God disappear altogether. Then he does not feel God to be a person. Then he cannot describe in words what God is. And who will describe it? He who is to describe does not exist at all. That is the Nirgun Brahma. But no longer finds his eye. To such a person, Brahman is attributeless. In that state, God is experienced only as consciousness by man's inmost consciousness. Experienced by man's inmost consciousness, God is consciousness. He cannot be comprehended by the mind and intelligence. Individual mind and intelligence cannot comprehend, but consciousness can comprehend consciousness. Thakur's ultimate example. Therefore, people compare bhakti, love of God, to the cooling light of the moon, and jnana, knowledge, to the burning rays of the sun. I have heard that there are oceans in the extreme north and extreme south. Thakur has heard that, where the air is so cold that it freezes the water into huge blocks of ice here and there. Ships cannot move there. They are stopped by the ice. So permanently, God with form. Doctor, then in the path of bhakti, the aspirant meets with obstacles. You think that ice is obstacle. Master, yes, that is true, but it does not. So That is true. Previously also he said. Now he's telling that is true. But when it's followed by but, that means it is not fully true. But it does not cause the devotee any harm. Bhakti meets with obstacles, but it does not harm the devotee. He finds a way. After all, it is the water of the ocean of Brahman, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, that is frozen into ice. So ice is not an obstruction. He knows that water is ice. It will not injure you if you continue to reason. Saying, for instance, that Brahman alone is real and the world illusory, this reasoning will awaken in your jnana, which, like the sun, will melt the ice of divine forms back into the infinite ocean of Brahman, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. In the samadhi that comes at the Thakur, because of the repeated samadhi and coming down, he is explaining things better than any other teacher in the world. In the samadhi that comes at the end of reasoning and discrimination, no such thing as I exists. But it is extremely difficult to attain it. That is the point. High consciousness lingers so persistently. That is why a man is born again and again in the world, because high consciousness is there. The cow, example, the cow suffers so much because she says, Hamba, Hamba. That is like, I am, I am. That is I. She is yoked to the plough all day long, rain or shine, or she is slaughtered by the butcher. But even that does not put an end to her misery. The cobbler tans her hide to make shoes from it. At last, the carder makes it string for his bow, carding of cotton from her entails, and uses the string in carding. Then it says, tu, tu, that is thou, thou. Only then does the cow's suffering come to an end. So, when a man feels I am, suffering is there. When he feels thou, thou, then the suffering is gone. Likewise, only when a man says, not I am nobody, O Lord, thou art the doer and I am the servant, thou art the master, is he freed from all sufferings, only then is he liberated. Doctor, but one must fall into the hands of the carder. So problem is there, he says. Allah, Master, if this ego cannot be got rid of, then let the rascal remain as the servant of God. So that is Thakur's constant theme. Let him have some relation with God, then it will not cause any problem. Maybe I is there. A man may keep this ego even after attaining samadhi. Such a man feels either that he is a servant of God or that he is a lover of God. Shankaracharya written the ego of knowledge to teach men spiritual life. The servant ego, the knowledge ego, or the devotee ego may be called the ripe ego. It is different from the unripe ego, which makes one feel, I am the doer, I am the son of a wealthy man, I am learned, I am rich. How dare anyone slight me? A man with an unripe ego, because all this depends on the body and the mind, not on the reality. A man with an unripe ego cherishes such ideas. Suppose a thief has entered such a man's house and stolen some of his belongings. If the thief is caught, all the articles will be snatched away from him. Then he will be beaten. At last he will be handed over to the police. the owner of the stolen goods will say, what? This rogue doesn't know whose house he has entered. So the ego of the so-called nanny is being shown. After realizing God, a man becomes like a child, 5 years old. No ego, no attachment. This ego of such a man may be called the ego of a child, the ripe ego, in relation with God. And it does not hinder his spiritual life. The child is not under the control of any of the gunas. He is beyond the three gunas. He is not under the control of any of the gunas, sattva, rajasa, or tamas. Just watch a child and you will find that he is not under the influence of tamas. One by one he is explaining here. Huh? One moment he quarrels with his chum or even fights with him, and the next moment he hugs him, shows him much affection, and plays with him again. He is not even under the control of rajas. Now he builds his playhouse and makes all kinds of plans to make it beautiful, and the next moment he leaves everything behind and runs to his mother. Again, you see him wearing a beautiful piece of cloth worth 5 rupees. That is Rajoguna, 5 rupees in those days. After a few moments, the cloth lies on the ground. He forgets all about it, or he may carry it under his arm. If you say to the child, that's a beautiful piece of cloth, whose it is? He answers, well, it is mine. My daddy gave it to me. You may say, my darling, won't you give it to me? You are requesting lovingly and humbly. And he will reply, oh no, it is mine. My daddy gave it to me. I won't give it to you. Some minutes later, you may coax him with a toy or a music box worth a penny, and he will give you the clock. Again, a child 5 years old is not attached even to sattva. So attached to raja yashvan up till now, you may find him today very fond of his playmates in the neighborhood. He doesn't feel happy for a moment without seeing them. But tomorrow, all his love is now directed to his new friends. And he almost forgets about his old ones. Further, a child has no pride of caste or family. Sattvarajatami has shown no pride of family or caste. If his mother says to him about a certain person, this man is your elder brother, he believes this to be 100% true. One of the two may have been born as a Brahmin family and the other may belong to a low caste, say that of the blacksmith, but they will take their meal from the same plate. Children, mother has told he is your brother. A child is beyond all ideas of purity and impurity. He is not bound by social conventions. He doesn't hesitate to come out naked before others. See in how many ways he has described why? Because he has not developed his ego. And this man has gone beyond his ego. Then there is an ego of old age. Unripe ego. Dr. Sarkar laughs. An old man has many shackles, caste, pride, shame, hatred, and fear. These are all shackles. Furthermore, He is bound by the ideas of worldly cleverness, calculating intelligence, and deceit. If he is angry with somebody, he cannot shake it off easily. Old man. Perhaps he keeps the feeling as long as he lives. Again, there is the ego of scholarship and the ego of wealth. The ego of old age is an unripe ego because it depends upon material things. To the doctor, there are a few men who cannot attain knowledge of God. Men proud of their scholarships, proud of their education, or proud of their wealth. Education is what they learn. Scholarship is their genius. If you speak to such people about a holy man and ask them to visit him, they make all kinds of excuses and will not go. But in their heart of heart, they think, why? We are big people ourselves. Must we go and visit someone else? That is the ego of old age or wealth or other things. A characteristic of tamas is pride. Pride, how many details Thakur's knows, anything in relation to spiritual life, anything, everything. A characteristic of tamas is pride. Pride and delusion come from tamas, darkness, inertia. It is said in the Purana that Ravana had an excess of rajas. Kumbhakarna, Ravana's brother, excess of tamas, and Vibhishana of sattva, Ravana's brothers. Kumbhakarna had sought a boon that when I sleep, nobody should be able to wake me up. 6 months he used to sleep. That is why Vibhishana was able to receive the grace of Rama. Another characteristic of tamas is anger. Through anger, one loses one's wits and cannot distinguish between right and wrong. So now it is due to tamas. But now Thakur is telling anger makes a man blind. Because the example he gives here about Hanuman, we cannot say that is tamas. Nonetheless, in a fit of anger, Hanuman set fire to Lanka without thinking for a moment that the fire might also burn down the hut where Sita lived. A temporary blemish is shown by anger. It is not tamoguni Hanuman. Still another feature of tamas is lust. Girindra Ghosh of Pathuria Ghata once remarked, since you cannot get rid of your passions, your lust, your anger, and so on, give them a new direction. So he takes the name of every person from whom something spiritual has been heard. Give them a new direction. Instead of desiring worldly pleasure, desire God. Have intercourse with Brahman. Straight away he has told. Kama, direct to God. Lust, direct to God. If you cannot get rid of anger, then change its direction. Assume the tamasic attitude of bhakti and say, what? I have repeated the hallowed name of Durga and shall I not be liberated? This is not exactly anger, but tamogun. How can I be a sinner anymore? How can I be bound anymore? If you cannot get rid of temptation, direct it toward God. Be infatuated with God's beauty. If you cannot get rid of pride, then be proud to say that you are the servant of God, you are the child of God. Thus turn these six passions towards God. He tells in the name of Girindra Ghosh. Girindra, this is not Girish Ghosh, doctor. It is very hard to control the sense organs. So from this he is thinking of now sense organs. They are like restive horses whose eyes must be covered with blinkers. In the case of some horses, it is necessary to prevent them from seeing at all. Master, a man need not fear anything if but once he receives the grace of God. So this also has a spiritual answer. If but once he obtains the vision of God, if but once he attains self-knowledge, three things he has told here. Grace of God, vision of God, self-knowledge. Then the six passions cannot do him any harm. So direct him and all that is true. But there is a position where they will not harm at all. Eternally perfect souls like Narada and Prahlada did not have to take the trouble to put blinkers on their eyes. They do not require to control because it does not function that way at all. The child who holds his father's hand while walking along the narrow walk in the paddy field may loosen his hold in a moment of carelessness and slip into the ditch. But it is quite different. If father holds the child's hand, then the child never falls into the ditch. So Thakur is showing surrender. Doctor. But it is not proper for a father to hold the child by the hand. So he goes back to human behavior and lack of self-effort he does not like. So it is not good for father to hold the land at all. Master, it is not quite like that. So this thinking is wrong. Thakur tells him it is not quite like that. It is not bad. Great sages have childlike natures. So this is childlike. Before God, they are always like children. They have no pride. Their strength is the strength of God, the strength of their Father. They have nothing to call their own. They are firmly convinced of that. So, in that case, God holds the hand. Doctor, can you make a horse move forward without first covering his eyes with blinkers? Can one realize God without first controlling the passions? So, he is not about that turning to God, but controlling the passions, and then only you can think of God properly. Master, what you say is according to the path of discrimination. So one path follows like that. It is known as Jnana Yoga. Through that path too, one attains God. The Jnanis say that an aspirant must first of all purify his heart. First he needs spiritual exercises. Then he will attain knowledge. But God can also be realized through the path of devotion. When the devotee develops love for the lotus feet of God and enjoys the singing of his name and attributes, he does not have to make a special effort to restrain his senses. For such a devotee, the sense organs come under control of themselves. अपना देखें. Devotion can solve all the problems if it is genuine. Suppose a man has just lost his son and is mourning his death. Can he be in a mood to quarrel with others that very day or enjoy a feast in the house of a friend? Can he that very day show his pride before others or enjoy sense pleasure? Example correct. If the moth discovers light, can it remain in darkness any longer? So love of God will remove all that traces. Doctor, with a smile. Of course it cannot. It would rather fly into the flame and perish. So he picks up some thread from that finally is the perishment. Master, oh no, that's not so. So sometimes you are misconstruing my examples. A lover of God does not burn himself to death like a moth. The light to which he rushes is like the light of a gem. That light is brilliant, no doubt, but it is also cooling and soothing. That light does not scorch his body, it gives him joy and peace. Correct example is like that. One realizes God by following the path of discrimination and knowledge, but this is an extremely difficult path. It is easy enough to say such things, as I am not the body, mind, or intellect. I am beyond grief, disease, and sorrow. I am the embodiment of existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. That Shankaracharya is Nirvana Shadikam. I am beyond pain and pleasure. I am not under the control of these sense organs, but it is very hard to assimilate these ideas and practice them. Suppose I see my hand cut by a thorn and blood gushing out. There it is not right for me to say why my hand is not cut by the thorn. I am all right. In order to be able to say that, I must first of all have the thorn itself in the fire of knowledge. I must first of all burn the thorn itself in the fire of knowledge. Many people think they cannot have knowledge or understanding of God without reading book. I think we'll take it up tomorrow. Om Tava Kathamritam Sapta Jivanam Kavivireeditam Kalmashapam Shravanamangalam Shrimadasatam Bhuvi Grunanti Ye Bhurida Jana Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanam.